One. Guys, welcome back for another episode of the podcast. And today I am privileged to have David Dulany from Tenbound. I have been told multiple times, let people speak. So I'll hand it right over to you, David. We do this intro in a sense of, or in the format of, who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm David Dulany. I run Tenbound, which is at tenbound.com. It's right now we're developing a sales technology marketplace where you can find the best sales technology that's out there. And developing this, we've been working with sales and SDR teams for 8 years now and finding the best processes and tech solutions. And we're trying to bring those together in one place where people can find the best sales technology. And so, why do I do it? Freedom. I worked in the corporate world for way too long, and always, if you look at my resume, shorter and shorter stints of time until finally. The last one was just a couple of months, I think, and I've been out on my own now for going on 8 years, and hey, it's a different experience, but it's been awesome, and I love the freedom.
So,
So
when did you discover you had a knack for being a business owner?
never.
I feel the same way.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say so. When I think of business owner, it's like somebody who's really good at the
Yeah.
operations of
Mhm.
running a business, and they're good with numbers, and they're good with math, and they've got their eyeball on every penny coming in and out of the business, and they end up with a big profit at the end of the
Mhm.
year. And for me, that's a successful business owner, and that part I'm still trying to figure out. I That's definitely not one of my strengths. Um, when I think of entrepreneur, then that's sort of the vision and thinking about making products and services that are useful for people and having the people pay for them and being happy and successful. The knack for that, I think it came as soon as I figured out I couldn't be an employee anymore. And I had to go out on my own. The day that I hung up the 10 pound shingle and started working on it was probably one of the happiest days of my life.
Jesus. So, and all right, tell me more about that. So, you got to a point where you no longer could be an employee. I got to that point in 2019, which is about the time I found you. And in 2019, I was selling demand generation webinars to oil and gas service companies that were trying to sell to EPCs. And I built a division from zero to about 500,000 in less than 2 months. Product value or annual contract value was like 5.5 grand of like a very shitty webinar product. And what kept on happening with my webinars versus the entire division, which was segmented into different market segments. So you had pharma, supply chain and packaging, oil and gas, energy, and then banking, finance, and a few other ones. And mine kept sinking. They kept tanking. Every webinar, or well, let's say the majority of the webinars that we were delivering, we're supposed to have 100 pre-qualified registrants that would register to the webinar. And as you know, you typically get between an 18 to 32% conversion rate in terms of live viewership. And for some reason, I was getting single digits. And after a few years of continuously selling and selling and selling and hitting my new business numbers, even my monthly target on new business, I quickly found out that my clients weren't renewing at the same speed or at the same volume quantity as my colleagues. And come to find out, into my second year and some change, I had sold a webinar to a company called Inflow Control, and they were based out of I think it was a Dubai based company. I tried to sell this company for 2 years. 2 years, they changed leadership roles a bunch of times. Finally, got to the guy, Brent, sold him the webinar. 2 to 3 weeks into the webinar, he decided to do his own due diligence because he was wondering, You said you have this wide audience of 30,000 people in a subscription. Why is there only this many registrants coming to the webinar? So we started to call a couple
Mm,
of the registrants to the webinar and found out that they had never registered. They'd never even been contacted.
mm, mm.
So now
Yeah.
this client calls me and says, Shane, you're a fucking liar. And I'm thinking, what are you
Mm,
talking about? And he's going, well, I did this, I did this, I did this. I want all my money back, blah, 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 blah. Come to find out that the company I was working for, they had a manned telemarketing team that would call a list of ICPs. And in some cases, they would call them and just say, hey, you don't even need to watch this webinar. Can I register you for it? It's about this.
ugh,
Indian firm doing
jeez.
that, and then obviously we're English company representing ourselves of prestige and quality, and we get found out. And I asked the marketing manager, I said, "What's happening here?
That's
This is what the client has told me," and she had the nerve to say, "He's hit the number. It's like basically it's none of your concern." And I ended up saying, "You're an idiot. I quit." So I quit the company, and that was my last
mm,
stage. And even my boss at the time, he said, "Good on you. I'm very happy for you."
yeah.
So that was my last straw. It was the delivery and the success of delivery being held in somebody else's hand. I had no control. And then the worst thing was being deceived by my own team. And then a client coming to me and really just basically diminishing my integrity with a few words. And I couldn't have that anymore. So for you, what was it that your trigger point, or what was your trigger moment where you said, all right, this is enough?
Oh my god. No, that's interesting because, as an entrepreneur, you find out really quick if you're adding value and you're doing something that people value. And the market's brutal.
Hmm.
They'll come back to you they'll give you one
Yep.
chance, and if you blow it like that, then you're toast. And a bigger company that they have so many clients and so many employees and stuff like that, they can burn their customers for
Hmm.
years, and you as the employee has to take the bad reputation and the brunt of the angry phone calls. But I mean, you got to think after a while enough people are
Of
going to find
course.
out that the company's going to be damaged by that. So it's an interesting, yeah. And so, but to your point, you're representing a
Mhm.
brand and you're also representing yourself, and you want to work for a company that's in high integrity and is adding value to their
Sure.
customers. And some customers are always going to be
Mhm.
unhappy, right? But at least you want to know that you can sleep at night moralistically delivering a high value
Mhm.
product. And for me, it was a bit different. I've been in that type of situation. It
Mhm.
sucks. So I that's why I'm nodding along, going that blows. But for me, it was my trigger moment was at a here in the United States. There's a place called Dave and
Oh, I love
Buster's,
David
and
Busters.
you
I
love
know
Dave and
David
Buster's.
Busters.
Do they have them over there? Okay, so I don't know. I'm being U.S. centric, but if they have Dave and Buster's in your country, then you know where I'm talking about. If you don't have them, Dave and Buster's are basically video arcade, sports watching bars, these gigantic
Mhm.
places where it's like a Chuck E. Cheese
Adults.
for
Yep.
adults. And right, you go there and you play video games and you do all these things, and it's supposedly very entertaining. My kids
Oh,
love to
yeah.
go there. I take my kids there, but where it hit the fan for me was I was at Dave and Buster's in Roseville, California, which is about 3 hours from my
Mhm.
house. It was near the corporate headquarters, and I was at a corporate leadership meeting with this group of people, and we did an offsite to Dave and Buster's, and I just remember I looked around. I was away from my family. I was doing something that I really wasn't that interested in, with a bunch of people who, God love them, really nice people, but it was a bunch of 40-year-old guys in acid wash
I
jeans, eh, standing around Dave and Buster's, which, and I don't drink. So that makes it even worse. And I go, I really feel like I'm wasting my life right now. I don't want to be here at Dave and Buster's. I don't want to be hanging out with these guys. I don't, I didn't want anything, and it was just like, this is
Mhm.
ridiculous. Like, first of all, why the fuck are we at Dave and Buster's? Sorry, um, you could beep
No,
that
we want
out,
those.
but I mean, come on, you guys. We're all in our mid 40s here, and anyway, so that was my moment. I'm like, I'm out of here, man. You know. So that was the trigger moment for me,
Are you
and Ten Down was
so what do
born.
you, what was the first, okay, so for the first mission, the first
Yeah.
mission of creating Tenbound, it's always interesting to hear what others start with. So it was March, April of 2020. The COVID had just hit, and they said go home. Me and my then business partner, we were playing chess, Xbox for months, and we just got to a point where we're just like, we're really bored. Let's go create a company, right? And the first thing I did was go to Udemy and type in business planning, found a course, gave me an Excel sheet. That Excel sheet allowed me to type in a bunch of things. Took me about 7 days. And then you basically copy and pasted everything over, and you had a 17, 18 page, fully fledged business plan. And then I went and started to talk to mentors and other people in the industry. And the way we made sales driven extremely successful in our first 2 years was I went and spoke to a lot of business leaders, a lot of heavy influencers that would answer my message and just said, "Hey, look, I'm starting a business. I've got no clue where to start. What would you do?" And a few of them offered to be mentors and advisors for free. And then some of them actually started to bring in referrals. And then very quickly, we went from £2,500 a month on appointment setting, which you know how difficult that can be. And we leveraged our way all the way up to £63,000 with it a month revenue within, I think, about 14, 15 months. What was the starting mission for Tenbound? Where did you guys start?
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome, dude. So we started. I had been running inside sales and SDR teams in the corporate world. That's how I ended up in Roseville, and and so I had an expertise. And this is back in
Hmm.
2017, and I was at a swim lesson for my kids, and I start this conversation with the CEO of a, cybersecurity
Okay.
company, and he's talking about he wants to start a SDR team, and I go, oh, I can help you with that. I can see around the corners and stuff like that. So literally, that's how it
Hmm.
was born. It was setting up SDR teams, hiring people, writing the scripts, writing the playbooks, and you know picking up a few clients with people that I either
Hmm.
knew or I had worked with in the past and stuff like that. And the rest is history. The other thing that we did was around that time, 2017 ish. There was a lot of conferences happening in San Francisco. There was
Hmm.
Dreamforce and Oracle and all these huge conferences. And I live in San
Hmm.
Francisco, so I said, why is there not a sales development conference? For all the ecosystem around outsourced SDRs and SDR tools and SDRs and managers and this milieu that we live in. And so we had our first conference at the Ritz Carlton in San Francisco in 2017, and it was a huge hit. We had uh, sponsors and people attended and yada yada yada, and it was awesome. So that started sort of a media business for
Hmm.
Tenbound, which we still do
Hmm.
today. It's changed a lot, but where we do events. And so, between the consulting and the events, there was enough there to, have stay free, let's say. Okay.
All right, that's quite interesting because in 2019 and 2020, I came to Tenbound for learning and to watch webinars on YouTube, and
Mm,
I thought that was quite interesting. Now, over the years, I've seen more webinars happen. I've seen more appearances from you. I'm
mm,
hearing that Tenbound has developed into a sales technology marketplace. 3 or 4 months ago, I was also in a competition with Salesfinity and Apollo, and we did the outbound calling, and you had validated data and validated leads. So unpack the entire spectrum of Tenbound and what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has evolved, and the short story is that if you think about sales development and in inside sales, it kind of boils down to the people, the processes, and the sales
Yeah.
technology. And so there's, you can unpack all three of those into subject matter that people are really
Mhm.
interested in. What I found though is that at the end of the day, people want to talk about the technology. The technology is the shining bullet or whatever it's called, the silver
Mhm.
bullet that's going to solve all of my
Yep.
problems. And for years, I was saying, you have to set up a process and you have to hire the right people. You got to train
Yep.
people, and really dial in all of that and then layer on technology. And finally, I just gave up. It's like if everybody just wants to talk about sales technology, fine. Here, here's 2000 sales technology. Literally, like if you go to the Tenbound sales tech directory today, there's over 2000 sales technologies.
Wow.
And each sales technology company is in a race to, just like me and you, they're trying to stay alive, sell enough product to either sell the company or become uh, a IPO or something like
Mhm.
that. They're all trying to, or they're trying to
Yep.
survive. Where I can add value in the marketplace is to bring these technologies together. And now the next step is, how do we sort these out and make it easy for sales leaders to look at them and go, okay, I know that the top three is, I'm just making up names, but the top three is going to be Sales Loft, Outreach,
Yeah.
and Apollo. Okay, so I don't have to talk to the 100 other sales companies. I'll just talk to
Mhm.
these three, and then what questions should I ask them? How do I make this easy to implement? And that's what I'm attempting to
Okay.
build.
So essentially,
Yeah,
you're trying to not fast track, but speed up the business, speed up the buying process, make it easier for buyers to buy, make it easier for them to find the technology that makes sense for their use case, and then you have the ability to shortlist 1, 2, 3, 4 companies that are the best fit in that particular domain. Is that right?
yeah, exactly. And so if you think about it, sales technology has just started to kind of ingrain itself in the sales
Mhm.
world. Obviously, the tech industry uses all the sales tech
Mhm.
tools. But if you go out to like the farming industry and the manufacturing industry and all these other verticals that are out there, they're barely starting to integrate Salesforce,
Yep.
like, or
Mhm.
HubSpot. They're like, oh, HubSpot, is that a new thing?
Is
And
that a new car?
so yeah, what is that? And then on the flip side, it's like there's this huge population of sales professionals who are out there going, how do I implement this in a way that's going to be helpful for me? So it's like, how do we bring these together and rationalize the industry to make it helpful for people? And hopefully that's what Tenbound will be.
So hold on a second. So on the point of identifying the technology, Are you also helping
Yeah.
them integrate it into their business?
I can. I'm not a technology, like Salesforce
Yeah,
certified person. I do have a network
mhm,
though of people that I can bring in
yeah,
to help with that. And so that's not really the big
yeah,
focus of Tenbound. But it's more like I need a good sales engagement platform. The one that we're using doesn't work, or it's broken or
yeah,
something like that. Where do I go? They go to Google, they start doing research. Tenbound comes up. They start researching, and next thing you know, we can actually provide intent data back to the companies that are listed on Tenbound. So, if what's the name of your
sales
company?
driven.
Sales Driven has a Tenbound,
Yeah,
profile, and IBM comes on and they start reading all about Sales
mhm.
Driven. Well, you want to know that, and you want to know what companies and even who these people might be, right? And so we'd be able to provide that to you.
Wow, that's really cool because a lot of people we'll get into it, but a lot of people, a lot of gurus, influencers online, they talk about being able to identify intent. Then you've got companies like Lead Magic, Lead Forensics, Ocean.io has a certain tool, Ample. I
Mhm.
think it's Ample Market. Some of the other ones. I've gone through so many of them, but it's very hard to understand which data or what data is actually genuine. So before we get into that, I would like to ask,
Mhm.
what is the majority, or do you have a majority? Um, not well, not a majority. Do you? Well, yeah. Do you have a majority of specific technologies within the marketplace that you specialize in, such as the use of intent or calling technology or intent? Let's just whatever it may be, behavioral things. Is there a specific area that Tenbound is really staying close to, given the fact that you have 2,000 different technologies in the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a really good question, and that's something the trend that we're seeing in the sales technology marketplace is
Yeah.
consolidation. And so there's like the big
Mhm.
6 or whatever it is, the big 5, the big 6. There's the players that are essentially gonna take care of everything outside of the
Yeah.
CRM. So they're gonna have, it's like a Swiss Army knife. They've got the call recording, they've got the data, they've got the sales
Mhm.
engagement platform and stuff like that. And I mean, just the fact that there's 2,000 sales tech companies, it's hard to track everything that everybody's
Mhm.
doing. But we can focus on the big 6 that are coming out that are supposed to be the big consolidators for sales technology. And so that's where with the limited time and resources that
Mhm.
I have, that's where we're really
So
focused
how
on.
how does your team keep the database or the marketplace up to date? How do they keep it refreshed when new news comes out? Like how do they incorporate that so that your users or the buyers that are coming to the marketplace, they always do have the most up to date relevant information?
Yeah. Well, that's the key. Like, I used to work at
Mhm.
Glassdoor,
Yep.
and
Very
you're probably
familiar.
familiar with that. And it's the beauty of Glassdoor was that it's user generated content. And so at first they released a database of like, 10,000
Mhm.
companies, and there was no information at all on Glassdoor. There was no reviews, there was nothing. And so they went out and let people know, hey, your company is on Glassdoor, and right now you don't have any reviews, there's no pictures, there's nothing here to
Mhm.
help people. So take ownership
Mhm.
of it. And so I'm in the process of doing that right now on Tenbound. So I'm reaching out to all especially the
Yeah.
big 6. We got to get them, completely
Mhm.
updated and saying, hey, take ownership of this, add pictures, add information, give a good experience. It's free. I'm not charging you
Mm-hmm.
anything. Now, if you want to
Yeah.
upgrade and start to see some of the data and unlock yada, 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 then hey, of course, I've got packages for that. Um, I got packages coming out of my, everywhere. What do you want? You can take it. But and then the other thing about that is that there's a line between the commercial side and the review side that can never be crossed. So no matter if somebody becomes a
Mm,
customer and they're paying a ton of money, you can never cross that
yeah,
editorial line of recommending or talking about them unless you disclose
of
that
course.
in a very
Mhm.
transparent way. And that's for your audience, like influencers and stuff, you got to be careful. If you're going on and saying, oh, I'll just say Zoom Info is the best thing since sliced bread. You have to put something down that says Zoom Info is actually paying me to
Yep.
say this. Otherwise you're out of credibility if people find out.
You're out of
So.
ethics. And we actually had a discussion about that the other week. I mentioned it to you. I run a series of roundtables every month, and typically, well, this year is the first year I've ever done it, and it's because I joined up with an AI company that I've now been hired by. And the best way to stimulate education and buzz around a startup is to talk about the topics that you're going to be focusing on. And one of those topics was AI in outbound. Then it was AI and ethics in sales and marketing. And then and a few other ones are going to be how to pick the right AI projects. But the reason why I asked you about what I just mentioned, that whole ethics piece, is because of
Mhm.
transparency. And when you come down to people, process, and technology, this will dovetail into the next piece. But ethics is a very, very delicate topic to touch on. And now that we touched on the piece of how you keep data up to date, relevant on the website, I want to move into a piece that we're focusing on now in a major way, which is AI and how to be ethical with the use of AI. And then this piece here, people, process, and technology. So, with the use of AI and having AI used in a sales development motion, what is the ethical way, in your opinion, that you see AI agents having a positive impact in how we work?
um that's a really good question. I think uh sales development is the process of reaching out to people, the right
Hmm.
people at the right
Hmm.
time with the right message. And basically enticing them into replying back, either just any sort of
Yep.
reply, a yes, no, or set a
Mhm.
meeting, whatever the reply might be, getting them to
Yep.
do that. And so, if you can utilize AI to be more targeted, to be more personal, to say something that's interesting enough to a prospect that they want to reply back to you, I don't see any ethical issue with utilizing AI in that way, unless I'm missing
Well, I'll
something.
tell you. I'll jump in on one
Yeah.
thing, right?
Mhm.
So we've come
Yeah.
into this market and we've had a number of conversations with now the three roundtables we had, 28 people in total. The biggest thing was there's a new regulation or there's a new law that has been passed on top of a robocalling pre-existing law. And that is that the
Mhm.
FCC or the ICC has released a new article that robocalling is completely not allowed with outbound calling.
Mhm.
So, if we've built a company that is designed to address the introductory phase of building relationships, and you have a law that says you can't do this, then what's the other ethical way around it? And what I came to find, or what I looked into, was inbound lead flow and being ethical and using inbound lead flow. And then this is where that truth piece comes in. And it's using AI in sales development and this is what I want to talk to you about, and the impact it will have. The first stage is from inbound lead flow and an AI agent being able to call up an inquiry and say, "Hey, David, this is Veronica. I'm an AI agent. I want to know if you want to have a chat with me based on the inquiry you filled out the other day. It will take 30 seconds. Or do you want me to pass you over to our CEO, John?" And then it's on you as the
Mhm.
customer to say yes or no. So now we've bypassed the outbound calls. Those will come at a later stage. You can do that. But when it comes down to speeding up or introducing yourself as an AI agent in the sales development motion, how do you see it done in an ethical way? How would you be using AI to make the right type of intro, be respectful, polite, and fly within the radar, fly within the lines that you're permitted to do so?
Yeah, I mean, so and there's just definitionally there's ethics and then there's like
Hmm.
legality. And so there's absolutely, no question that you should hold both at the highest
Hmm.
regard, I think, in business. And you can't break
Of
any of the
course.
laws, and you have to be ethical, which has different definitions depending on who you're
Hmm.
talking to. But you have to stay ethical, I guess, to whatever you feel is ethical, or if you get feedback from the market and they're like, you're out of
Yeah.
ethics, then you have to respond to that. um, but the way that I look at AI and sales development is, number one, there's a huge amount of unstructured data and content that's out in a million gazillion billion different places on the
Hmm.
internet that no human being could potentially sift through and utilize
Hmm.
effectively. I mean, it's boring. It's almost impossible, right? So if you layer on an AI on top of a huge unstructured data
Hmm.
set, then it can start to organize it in a way that's effective for an SDR, a human SDR. So I'll give you an example. Like, if you think about your ideal customer
Hmm.
profile, then there's a bunch of accounts that are out there. Some accounts are where you should spend your
Hmm.
time. Other accounts, you should not waste your
Yeah.
time there. Right there, perfect use case
Yeah.
for AI. Sort these out and put the right accounts in front of me at the right time. Next, within the account, you have the people that are involved in the decision making or evaluation of your product. Okay, there's like billions of people out there in the world. AI, sort these out, put them in front of me so that they're the right people at the right time. Next, the
Mm.
messaging. How do you, and this is where we get into what you're bringing up. How do we reach these people? You're not allowed to call them, you're not allowed to email them, you're not allowed to
Yeah.
bother them in any way. Can AI be used in a way where I'm just targeting the right person with the right message at the right time so that I'm not bothering them? I'm actually identifying a pain point that they have, and I'm talking to them about it. If they're not interested, they're not
Yeah.
interested. You know, only 5% of the people are interested and you got to find the 5%. Use AI to
Yeah.
do that.
I
you know
think that, yeah, that
so
look, in terms of using AI to sift through data, the amount of conversations we've had so far about that is just absolutely incredible. One of our
yeah.
partners just mentioned the other day. He said, "I have all of this data, right? I have all of this data, and you have companies like Zoom Info, Cognism, Lead Feeder, whoever, Apollo, and think about how many people go and purchase data, but because of switchboard data, they only use 30% of it. Because as you know, most people are going to go through direct dials and mobiles to reach their prospects. Some cases, they'll use switchboards. So, well, what was mentioned was, can you use an AI agent to call these switchboards and get through the gatekeeper? That would be one of them. And then if you can do that, now if you have, let's say, 100,000 contacts, and out of those 100,000 contacts, 60,000 of them are switchboards, and now you have the ability to use AI and go through the switchboard and identify the 3 or 4% that actually gets through to the decision maker. That 58, 59,000 contacts that you don't need to call now, That's a huge time savings, absolutely enormous. So a lot of companies are looking at it in that way too. Now, how are you using, if you're allowed to, how are you using AI with the release of ChatGPT, all of the other tools? How are you using AI in your business today?
Oh my gosh. Well, but real quick before you move on from that, when you think about business
Yep.
processes, and what's the number one most expense, the largest expense on your, P&L as a business is your the
Yep.
people, the
Yep.
salaries. And so I can tell every company, if they're smart, and they're good operators, they should be looking at that massive payroll
Yep.
expense and going, how can I replace this with AI? I mean, that's just the way it is.
I agree.
And for better or worse, I'm not, you could go into the whole like, what are people going to do? People will figure out
Mhm.
something to do, I'm
Yes,
sure.
they will.
but
And if they're getting rid of
but
the job probably sucks.
Yeah, exactly. What you want to spend? I mean, I know when I was a SDR and an inside salesperson, I spent most of the day sifting through
Yep.
unstructured data, looking for somebody to call or email. I mean, it's just such a waste of
Yes.
time. And the other quick example I want to give is my friend runs a company called Connect and
Oh,
Sell,
I know Chris.
and Chris, yes, dude, you got to have Chris on the show and talk
Oh,
about this.
Chris will be on here 3, 4
Oh,
hours.
just hit record and then walk into another
Right?
room, and when you
We'll
come
go for
back
a
the
walk in
next
the
day,
mountains.
oh, you
Oh,
really
I
do
know
know
Chris
Chris.
very well.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is and this might have changed with AI, but a few years ago, the way that Connect and Sell works is they have this army of people in some foreign country. I don't know
Mhm.
where it is, but there's this army of people, and all they're doing is calling switchboards and going through and talking to
Yep.
secretaries and talking to administrative assistants, and they're like a blunt force
Yep.
infantry, going up against cannon
Mhm.
fire. And finally, if they make one connection, they hot switch it over to somebody in the
Yep.
United States who's an
Yep.
SDR or an AE. Okay. So if you think about that business process, that is ripe for
Oh,
AI,
beautiful.
because and morally and ethically, if it's moral and ethic to have an army of people in the foreign country making calls to a
Mhm.
switchboard, why can't you do that with a AI robot? Like but so that's just a more of a
I
philosophical
guess we can't
question. I guess we can't really answer that right
we
now.
can answer it
But
after
but why
though.
not? I'm sure. And Chris, if you're listening, you got that free advice from me. How do I use AI at Tenbound? Oh my gosh. I mean, I run a very I would say for me a very organized and efficient content machine
Yes, you do.
at Tenbound. I've got myself and two other people, but we're putting out a blog posts, webinars. I've got a virtual conference that I'm running on March 28th. I don't know when this podcast is coming out,
Before.
but we have hundreds of videos. You could get your PhD in sales on the Tenbound YouTube
Yeah,
channel. I
you
mean,
can.
we're essentially the work that we're doing
Mm.
right now at Tenbound, like 5 years ago, would have taken a team of like 10 people. We're doing it with three, and really it's two
Yeah.
and a half. Okay. So, I mean, Otter, ChatGPT, Pattern, I mean, all these tools that, they probably add up in the monthly fee that I pay to be half a person, but it's
Yep.
a lot. But it's ridiculous how much
Of
leverage you can get
course.
out of these.
It's unreal. Absolutely
So,
unreal. So, a lot of people are asking us in this, what do you see as a major challenge this year? And for me, again, I'm seeing it as data is an issue, and there's too many opinions on what is right, what is wrong, and it's very hard to now sift through the right information, the quality information, the stuff that works. I typically go to most of the senior established people who have receipts on their work. But for you, even with AI, what are you seeing right now as the biggest challenge agency owners are facing in 2024?
Agency owners, as far as outsourced SDR
And
companies
similar to
and
you,
those type,
in your
yeah,
space or
yeah,
both, what do you see as the biggest
yeah.
problem we're faced with right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's lots of problems, but I would say you mentioned like information
Yep.
overload and people, and I think that this is kind of a from COVID, but it just
Massive.
accelerated it because we're in front of our computer the whole
Mhm.
day, and we're not leaving our
Mhm.
house. Everything's
Mhm.
remote, and you do a little bit of work for 5 minutes, and then you go over to
Yep.
LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn
Boom.
there's 50 different gurus giving you all this advice, which is really good advice. A lot of it's contrary, and it's things that aren't necessarily in context for what you're
Mhm.
doing. And then all of a sudden your brain is like exploding. You go down, get a cup of coffee, you come back up, you fire up YouTube.
Oof.
Now it's 50 million sales gurus are telling you what to do, and Grant Cardone is flying around on a private jet and it's just like, when am I going to get any work done?
You gotta listen to Grant. How I bought an $80 million
Yeah,
mansion from a Russian billionaire. Like,
totally. I mean, I saw that. I'm guilty as charged. I'm information overload. So the reason I bring that up, I mean, just so your listeners can get some value, there's an off
yeah,
switch on these things, and it's the it's it's like the
I'm struggling.
um turn everything off, get out a piece of paper and a pencil, go for a walk, and let your mind
Breathe.
like process everything that you've been
Mhm.
consuming for so long, and come up with like a plan, a to-do list of the most important things that will really make a difference in your business, and then go back to your computer, turn off all the other stuff, and do those
It's
things.
insane, David. Like, honestly, the amount of
Yeah.
information that is coming our way. I've had to. So, the first thing I did was folderize all of my social media apps. After folderizing them, I've moved that folder to the back of my, like, there's 4 pages on my screen. I've moved it all the way to the back. And I think the net
Yeah.
again, but it's just for some reason right now, the client load for me is very light. It's paying to a point where I don't have to worry about anything, but the workload is only an hour a day. Meaning I'm having to fill, minus my 7, 8 hours of good sleep, I'm having to fill, what is it? That's 8, 16. I'm having to fill 15 hours of boredom. 2 hours goes to the gym.
Mhm.
And a lot of the free time goes to picking the phone and TikTok, Instagram, Threads, X, Facebook Marketplace. I'm looking for a car. Then there's this hot chick on Snapchat. She's really hot. I keep going through hers. And it's just like, then you got all these other ones.
You and everybody else,
I'm
man.
just
I mean, you're the same as everybody. Everybody's like this right now, and it's like, and believe me, dude, I'm guilty as
yeah.
charged. I'm not judging, anybody that's out there. I'm just saying that I think the superpower, moving forward is going to be how can you like survive in this information overload, overstimulated, over dopamine, world, and like almost become like a monk and sort of really focus on high value long term
Mhm.
success, and that's a huge challenge right now that's
It's
out
mad.
there. But the good news real quick is that your competitors are dealing with this too. So it's not just you. It's not like your competitor is a monk,
Hmm.
who's chanting somewhere in a temple and creating these amazing products and services, and now they're going to kick your ass. They're also super
Of course,
distracted.
and I think that's one thing. So as we approach the top of the hour, there's I'm interested in hearing your part on this because you've been ahead of the content game for quite some time now. And being ahead of the content game definitely gives you a lot of advantages. So, what is your opinion right now on companies having, maintaining, and or building trust by having a strong social media presence? And before you answer that, the reason why I ask you is this. I've, as you know, we get approached online all the time or on email all the time. And it's very hard to sift through whether a company is just another like outsourced shop from a third world country that's just like a chop shop, or if they're genuine. And half the time, if I'm checking if a company is genuine right now, is if they have a strong presence on social media. So, what's your opinion on being an established company? And if you don't have a social media presence, building or starting one?
Yeah, I mean, well, for a short answer, if it's like a sales technology company, just sponsor Tenbound. We'll take care of it.
That's the way. That's
You
an
don't have to
avenue.
do it. Don't worry about it. But no, all joking aside, but call me. I'm here for you. No, I think that if you flip it around, it's like a company is created to solve a problem,
Hmm.
for the marketplace. So what problem do you solve, and can you become an expert in that problem? Like, if you haven't lived the problem, then can you talk to a lot of customers and just really become an expert in that
Yep.
problem, and then start to write content and do webinars and stuff like that about the
Mhm.
problem. Like, that's where I would go. Talk about the problem, and not even pitching your product maybe until the very
Yep.
end, and it's like Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Left, jab,
Yep.
jab, jab,
Yep.
right hook. So at the jabs is talk about the problem, become an expert, and then when somebody's out there is going to be
Of
dealing with
course.
that. Otherwise, you don't really have a
Yep.
company,
Yep.
and they're going to Google, like, how do I get more pipeline? How do I hire SDRs? How do I do this? How do I do that? And then eventually you're going to pop
Mhm.
up, and you'll be considered a useful resource. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we've got this company that solves this if you're ready to make the next step. That's how I would
Mm.
look at it. Um, the number of followers and like all those vanity metrics is just like, it really doesn't matter. I mean, at the end of the day, because you could have like a million followers, but if nobody's giving you
Yep.
money, then you're basically just wasting your
I
time.
agree.
Um,
I
yeah.
agree. So for this year, and let's just say for the foreseeable future, where do you see us going as agency owners, as sales technology marketplace? What do you think is the next big thing that's going to happen over the next 1 or 2 years?
Oh my gosh. Dude, this is funny. Because you're perfectly positioned for this because you've got some time on your hands. I think we're going to go back to. You're already seeing this in San Francisco. We're going to go back to face to
Yep.
face, meeting, human,
Connection. Yep.
meeting, connection. Yeah. So literally right now, if you're like a CMO or a VP of sales in San Francisco, you could eat at like a 4 and 5 star restaurant steak dinner every night if you wanted to, because all the companies are putting together these little dinners of 10 and 20 people, invite only, and they pay for the dinner because they're just trying to get the right
Yep. Yep.
people
Yep.
in the
Yep.
right
Yep.
room and have a human
Yep.
connection. And and it's not scalable. It's not, press a button in your pajamas and you'll have millions of dollars
Mhm.
coming in. It's very like, you have to go out of your house and drive in the car and like take the tube and go places and actually meet people face to face. I think you're just going to see more of that happening in our world, like almost as the rise of AI and technology, starts to delete a lot of the repetitious tasks and things that computers
Hmm.
can do. The human part becomes more important.
You've actually hit the nail on the head right there. Why? This is why I did the podcast. I was so freaking lonely. Went through a divorce. Went through a divorce, separation.
I
I was like,
feel you,
holy
man.
shit, this is so fucking lonely right now. What can I do? Let's start a podcast. I can speak to people every day.
Yeah,
But then it got to a
yeah,
point where every
perfect
day was a little
excuse.
bit tough. And then it came to like, oh, okay, I can only do one a day too. So, look, top of the hour, a lot
Yeah.
of people want to know what are the visions of these business leaders, these entrepreneurs, these CEOs, these executives? What kind of visions do they have? If my audience is watching this and they're lost, the amount of people I speak to, and I read Seven Habits of Highly Effective People about 6 to 7 years ago by Stephen Covey. And just one thing that always just made so much sense, I kind of lead my first foot forward with this is begin with the end in mind. And it's just knowing that unless you have that vision or you have that anchor in the ground of what do you want your life to look like or feel like or be like, you have to kind of picture it. You have to have some sort of plan. So I've mentioned mine a number of times, but for yourself, in 10 years from today, it's March 19th, I believe it is. It's Tuesday, if I'm right, if I'm still on the right time. And it's 8:48 for me. So at 8:48 in 2034, granted David has done everything he wanted to do, everything works out perfectly fine. What are you doing at this very day and time in 10 years?
Oh my god. um, the great philosopher Arnold Schwarzenegger. he recently he came out with a book, and uh, he says it perfectly. Um, be useful. And and if you there's a documentary too about him on Netflix. It's pretty good. It's a little self-aggrandizing, but um, I like the concept be useful, because especially as I get older and I realize that you realize more and more the world is not all about you and what you want and your little needs and your
Yeah.
gripes and your complaints and me, and especially when you have
Mhm.
kids, you realize like you're this tiny little speck of nothingness, in the greater world. And how can I be useful? Am I being so? Long-winded way to say, in 10 years, I hope I can really look at myself in the mirror and go, I'm being useful to
Yeah.
somebody in the world or a group
Mhm.
or somebody out there. And I'm not just this, crumpled up little selfish ball, who's only, they call him a Karen in the US. I don't know if they have that there. Complaining to the
I love
manager about my soup. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And again, it's on TikTok, all over TikTok, all over socials. How to be a Karen or what a Karen
Male
looks like. Oh
Karen.
my God, it's great. So, look, David, I think there's going to be a ton more that we can unpack in a lot of episodes moving forward. And for now, in the immediate term, for those that have piqued their interest and are at the top of their heightened senses after watching this, where do people come to find you, speak to you, learn more about Tenbound and what it could do for their business?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. That was so fun. I love coming on. And yeah, if you're a salesperson or a user of sales technology, please go to Tenbound and leave a review of one of your top companies that you enjoy or you
Hmm.
hate, one or the other. It's totally fine. And then there's a contact page, and tons of content.
Yep,
Like I
there is.
said, you could get your PhD in sales, inside sales and stuff on Tenbound for free. and we'd love to see you over
Well, a
there.
lot of contracts that I successfully delivered and was able to repeat came from watching some of your webinars, some of the content that you put out. So I can actually confidently stamp that David's content is definitely worth the watch. So look, David, until next time, I really do appreciate anybody who watched this and found value and liked what David said, what we were talking about. Like and subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends and family if you like it. And until next time, David, is there any lasting words from you?
No, thank you so much, and I hope to come on again. It was a lot of
Thank you
fun.
very much. That's it, guys. That's the pod. So